very warm welcome to Bharata First. You're watching Big Picture with me, Frank Rausan Pereira. First, let me inform you about Bharata First Knowledge Center, an initiative that will help each one of you and transform the way you learn. You can go to our website kc.bharatafirst.com for the details. Register now and avail the limited period discounts. Now, since you're here, I would like to thank you for your continued support. For those of you who haven't already subscribed, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then all notifications. Do follow our social media handles for all the latest updates, and you can also subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. The Bharata First team runs a daily Big Picture quiz. Please do participate by going through the description in Big Picture videos. Here are the UPI IDs for those of you who would like to come forward and make a contribution. A small contribution that you make will be a giant leap for us to keep bringing you this content. So do continue to show your love and support. I need it now more so than ever. In case you have trouble with the UPI IDs, you can use the payment link in the description box below and follow the instructions. All this information along with some must-see recommendations are in the description of this video. Please go through it. Now to the discussion. The cabinet chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday cleared the corporatization of the Ordnance Factory Board into 7 companies, paving the way for them to be more cost-effective, productive, and profitable besides increasing competitiveness. The decision to corporatize the Ordnance Factory Board, which controls the 41 ordnance factories, was announced last year by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman as part of a package to make India self-reliant in defense hardware production. The board will now be split into 7 entities owned by the government that will produce ammunition and explosives, vehicles, weapons and equipment, troop comfort items, optoelectronics gear, parachutes, and ancillary products. In this edition of Big Picture, we will analyze the Ordnance Factory Board restructuring. Joining me on the program today are Major General Dhruv C. Katoch, retired, Director, India Foundation; Air Vice Marshal P.K. Shrivastava, retired, former Director, Production, Bharat Dynamics Limited, and former Vice President, Defence and Aerospace L&T Limited; and Dr. V.N. Jha, Senior Scientist and former Joint Director, DRDO. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of Big Picture. General Katoch, let me start the program with you first. Let's understand your thoughts on, the restructuring of Ordnance Factory Board. How is it going to impact, what has been happening so far?
Thank you, Frank. Frank, in my view, I think this restructuring should have been done many, many years ago. And while it has been attempted by many earlier administrations, there has always been tremendous resistance from the unions. So we have got 41 ordnance factories who form part of the Ordnance Factory Board. Then there are the research institutes, and there's a very large staff when you actually combine all this together. Then, of course, there was also certain vested interest within the administrative bodies, the officer cadres. So they didn't want it to go, whereas it was a demand of the times that we need to restructure this. Now, why was this restructuring required? I would just try to put it across in a few simple words. One, at the time of independence, India had a thriving defense industry. Please remember, we had just been through the Second World War, and a large part of the production base was based in India. So we started off well. Now, once we had started off well, that momentum was not maintained for various reasons, primarily because we were supposed to be a peace-loving country, a country of Gandhi, and as Nehru famously said to the first British Commander-in-Chief of the Indian Army, that we don't need an army. You see, the police is good enough to look after our defenses. Now, starting from there, a slide took place. But ultimately, what has happened is wherever government control comes in, a certain slothful attitude also takes place, not because of anything inherently wrong with the individuals involved per se. Because one thing which I'm absolutely certain of, the scientists whom we have got and the production people whom we have got in our defense factories are all outstanding. So I've got no complaints there. I think the problem is really in the way it is restructured, the way it is, the rules are framed. So what really happens is the problems which we in the services which we faced were really, I would put them as 3 to 4 very major problems. One, I think decision making was abysmally slow. So when we are looking at a corporate world today, and the Air Vice Marshal has worked in two different private organizations. He will tell you that the competitiveness is such, and one of the edges in that competition is decision making. So if one of the competitors is going to take, say, 2 years to make a decision, I'm afraid by the time that decision has come, other competitors have actually gone and produced the item itself. So decision making was abysmally slow, and at that you see right up to now, the board was located in Calcutta, in Kolkata now. Now, if the board is going to be located in Kolkata, and every time you require a decision, the board members come to Delhi, then they seek an appointment, and then they want something done. It really doesn't work out that way. It's a very slow motion. So decision making was abysmal. Then it led to certain other points. One, there was no accountability. Really didn't matter. We've had some very serious lapses on the part of the manufacturers as far as the factories are concerned, especially in ammunition manufacture. And when ammunition was defective, like there was a case many years ago where the mines were defective, the army was forced to take them on, and then the entire depot exploded. We lost a few thousand crores worth of ammunition. About 18 to 20 people lost their lives. Not one person has been held accountable for that defective ammunition. And we see the story repeating day in and day out. Recently, we had another accident in the Ranges. Nothing is going to come out of it. That element of accountability for the persons who have produced defective ammunition is just not there. Third is the quality control. Now, that the quality assurances, I think Dr. Jha will talk about it in much greater detail later. You see, the services have never been satisfied with the quality which has come up. And because it was a single vendor situation by which we have to buy from there and there is no other source, there was no incentive on the part of the manufacturer to say, we will improve our product, we will give something better. And last element which I want to talk about is the pricing. Now, the factories, our ordnance factories have been producing some everyday items. You are producing blankets, you are producing clothing, you are producing shoes, you are producing stuff like jeeps and all that. Now, vehicles. Now, we have got a very strong industrial base which can do a far better job with better quality and lower prices. So, very frankly, the government should never get involved in business. That is the bottom line. I totally agree that there are certain things where, the private sector cannot take it on. There is high-end technology where the demand is very low. The costs are going to be exorbitant. Okay, the private sector doesn't want to come in. That is where the defense should come in. The public sector should come in till such time as the private sector is in a position to take it on. But otherwise, I think it is very important that the defense production agencies should actually be, to a very large extent, privatized. The government has not taken that ultimate step. There are problems, but I think this is the first step. And it is a very vital step to take because now we have corporatized it. They have been split into 7 different branches. Decision making will be better. And over a period of time, the units which are non-productive, they will be phased out. So I think this is a good step, and let's see where it goes from here. Frank.
Absolutely. AVM, let me bring you into the picture now, and let me take this particular aspect forward with you because you have experience both with the government and with the private sector. The general made a point about how the government should not be in the business of doing business. But if you look at the general perception of the public at large, there is a trust deficiency when it comes to the private sector. And the perception is that the private sector is in it only to make money. Now, how do you put that aside, especially when you're looking at such a crucial and critical sector?
So, firstly, Frank, let me thank you for inviting me to this show. It's a very important topic. And having been in all 3 segments, that's being in the government as Air Vice Marshal and going through and facing the OFB, and being in DPSU, that is Bharat Dynamics Limited. Again, we interacted with DPSU, and I was director of production. So my interaction was even more intense. And we went in for Akash. It became even more intense, how we get our warheads, explosives, etc. from Ordnance Factory. And then being in L&T. So this kind of view, I'll just my experience. General has absolutely aptly introduced the subject. This is what the whole thing is. Now, what government is trying to do is corporatize the OFB, and this thought was going on even when I was interacting with DDP, that is Department of Defense Production. Of course, there was great opposition, but as I sensed, having visited so many of them, the opposition was mostly for the HR reasons. All of them understood, they're all very brilliant engineers who are from the IOFS cadre, and they know as much as any other, like my DPSU officers knew. But there were some deficiencies. So I know them firsthand, so I'll just share with the viewers. The first deficiency comes in when you have no cost actually for any item. I was bidding for Akash. I was a DPSU, which they now will become, and I have to give a price and then do my job within the price, and my price will be then thrashed, understood in a PNC by all the officers sitting there from DRDO, from Army, from other cost advisors, and everybody will sit there. I have to justify each and every element of my cost. Now, what happens in OFB? I wanted their quote to me. They said, no, when we produce, whatever the cost comes, that is the cost you pay. There's no costing mechanism. It's the cost of production as against you fixing up cost based on the efficiency. So even from a public sector point of view, this is a very awkward way of knowing the cost. You know the cost if your whole company is not running, and you're not keen on orders. Orders come to you. You have your work in progress going through. You have inventory piling up. Your quality certification is taking place or not taking place. You're not bothered because nothing is impacting you. This is not a great thing, but I will agree with him. This is a very aged organization. It's more than 300 years old. It was actually founded in 1712. That is 1712. That year, that's more than 300 years, and it did a great job in World War II. We were, I think, one of the very few factories who really produced all the mortar, rockets, and everything which went in to fight the World War II. But despite that, we became aged. We had the same archaic procedures. We had the same archaic thinking. There was no innovation coming up. There was nothing happening. And everyone took it for granted. It was what I was sitting on my past laurels. It had to be structured to look ahead. So this corporatization, I think from that perspective is very, very important. And if I have time, I'll tell you the way I read the government order. Phenomenal. This kind of privilege is not available to any of the DPSU, sir. Is phenomenal because they'll keep getting for next 5 years their orders on nomination basis. So that does not change the thing. All the man force, that is men and officers who are there, will get their pension as they were getting as government employees. There's no change. And it's a 80,000 workforce. And also, if I bid for Make India on that make one concept, make two concept, I'll be given 15% leverage over the L1. I have not heard of it. It's phenomenal. That means you can compete very well. And the pricing, you have given a lot of flexibility over pricing. For the next 5 years, your capital budgets will keep flowing from Government of India. Your working capital will keep flowing from Government of India. I feel if I'm on a board of such a company, I can really do wonders, because I'm not responsible as of now for fiduciary things, because board is responsible for fiduciary things. But I think as a transit mechanism, I think this is one of the best thing that this government has done, and probably that has soothed the tempers, and everybody knows. And the officers who go on the board will be represented in DDP, Defense Procurement Board. The chairman would be there at suitable position. The officer chairman would be of the rank of the Secretary to Government of India. The members would be of the rank of Additional Secretary to Government of India. To tell you, just share with you, all the DPSUs have a joint secretary being represented in their board. In this case, an additional secretary will represent the OFB, which is an elevated position. That means OFB is being put on the elevated position that government has taken care of. And also the officers and cadre, as rightly was brought out by General, we need them. They're very well trained. They know how to run it. They need to be structured in new methods. They can have their own material management methods. Actually, if you really ask me as director of production, what bogs down or what really bogs it down and you're not able to deliver things in time is primarily because your supply chain does not work as per your choice. The supply chain is all important because if your items come in time, you can always make it work and produce the final product. They can write their own manual, materials manual, which will give power to the board that they can decide. And it's happening on the concept of holding company and other legal entities like Tata Group, holding company and then other companies. So there'll be 7 of them legal entities which will have empowerment, which can then bring in efficiencies. And I'm sure they can get as many consultants they want. They can do joint ventures. Joint venture is being permitted at the level of 49% of OFB and 51% for somebody else. You'll find many, many attractive people out there who want to joint venture with you because you have all the land, plant, machinery, and everything out there. It isn't plenty. You'll be shocked the way I see their assets. They're phenomenal. These assets only need to be sweated. If they can sweat their assets, they'll get the kind of turnover which has been marked for them by 24, 25. They should have 30,000 crore worth of turnover. I think it's a very, very doable thing, the way I see it. And
Sure.
they have also been now given leeway that they can go into space-based assets. Oh, that's phenomenal. Space is all waiting for to be exploited. Nothing much is there by the private sector or any of the public sector units over there. So you have
Absolutely.
great market play, you have great financial management for you, you have great money pouring in for you. And if you take any loan, 70% will be in equity form, 30% is only loan. Where do I get that kind of loan? It is the kind of loan which I would wish and pray for. So for the moment, I would say this restructuring was, as General pointed out, was in wait. And I will not talk about quality and this thing as of now because General knows it best. 80% of the items are bought from the OFB are bought by the army. Air Force only gets some about 9% or 7%. Exports are pretty low. They're just 6%. And
Sure.
they only go to Indonesia, Malaysia, or something like that. They don't go anywhere where there's competition. So we need to develop on that. We need to work on that. And their crib has always been, since now the candle is going to Dr. Jha, they always said, whatever DRDO gives me, we produce that, whether it's INSAS or any other mortars. But every company has to work on its own too. I have been in a public sector company. I know we have to work. It's a handshake. Both have to work together to get a product which customer likes. And secondly,
Absolutely.
the customer focus must come. Customer focus must come. That's what all of us are waiting for. And I hope this corporatization will bring in that essential thing. With that, I'll rest the case for the time being now here. Okay.
Absolutely. You know, Dr. Jha, let me bring you into the picture now. You heard both the gentlemen before you. Let's hear your thoughts as well on several of the points that were made. You know, I'd like to take 2 particular aspects forward with you. One is, of course, the resistance of the unions and why the resistance was there. Secondly, of course, the issue of quality.
Thank you very much, Frank, for having me here on your channel. And it is a pleasure for me to interact on all the topics that we have. I only hope that I will be able to bring forth some of the views which are pertinent to both sides, the sides of the user as well as the sides of the producer, and to see the entire this corporatization of the OFB in that perspective. Well, as General said, it is a very welcome step that had to happen long back, but there I durustai, that's what I will say, that it is always welcome now. Let me not take away anything from the OFB. They have performed phenomenally right in their ages when it was there in the past. So let's not take out their performance that was there, which was laudable. But in today's days, when the modernization is happening, when the technology is increasing leaps and bounds, it is not able to keep pace. And that is where General said that most of the equipment that is being produced by them, there is a far greater dissatisfaction by the user, the armed forces. And it is entirely, poor workmanship, deteriorating quality, and the lack of professionalism in the production of those equipment. Now, let me tell you, if I produce either a pin or a missile which has to go and hit with a pinpoint, both when it is on the manufacturing table, there's a job card, there's a manufacturing sheet, and if everything is taken as per the manufacturing sheet on the job card, nothing will vary. The pin will be pin, and the pinpoint accuracy of the missile will be pinpoint. But there is a problem. there's a cutting of the corners. And the moment you cut the corners, you compromise on the quality. So that is one area where most of the people who are suffering from the QA are having this problem. You know, quality assurance is a very broad term. When we produce that pin, when the steel comes, when the iron comes, where from we make it there is a screening of that block. We put it through the X-ray, we put it through the screening, through dye, and see for any micro fracture anywhere. And like this, there are numerous processes before the pin is produced. So in that context, I must say that any time that there has been a lowering of the production standard, there have been a departure from the laid down norms of the inspection in-house quality assurance, as well as, you know, when the armed forces gives the order, their QA, MOD QA, is supposed to inspect at various levels of various the stages of the manufacturing. And if those QA, they don't interact and have a look at those time, they are going to have a problem. Because, you know, let me not say that people are corrupt, but people can be influenced at the time of acceptance of that order. I've been seeing in day in and day out. Let me tell you, I was in the Air Force for 30 years. I have seen it happening. Every time the helmets, the G suits of the Air Force came, we suffered from it. You know, the pilots scream about it. The microphone will not work, earphone will not work, helmet will not perform perfectly, G suit will give way in flight. I have been saying all these things, and for what reason? Just one reason, that the person who was supposed to do the check both in-house and at the time of acceptance, he has not done his job. Now let me go from there. Why has this OFB got left behind? First and foremost thing is the in-house R&D of the OFB. There are 8 institutes of excellence. Mind you, OFB has got 8 institutes at different places of excellence who are supposed to excel in the R&D. They have left behind. Secondly, these production equipment, that has got left behind because of the lack of modernization. And third thing, even the services have been slightly indifferent in putting the order for the indigenization of the newer equipment. You know, that is somewhere the OFB have not got the orders of the newer equipment. Possibly the services felt that they are not capable of producing it. And secondly, the OFB itself felt that since there is nothing happening beyond that 303 rifles and the INSAS and few more carbine and things like that, so they didn't have anything to do. So all these have put into the problems with which now we are facing the problem where we are. Let me tell you one small example. 2019 CAG report of the OFB, it says that the overheads expenditure constitute almost about 1/3, 33%. It is inexcusable. Secondly, the production target achieved by the OFB was just about 49%. Thirdly, 52% of the inventory was in store, which just could not be used for the production of the product. Thirdly, the work in process, you know, different items which are in the various stages of formation, that formed almost about 32%. So, you know, 52% of the inventory which was in the store and 32% lying on the floor. 84% is lying unused. As a result, on that day, 2009-2010 orders of the armed forces was lying undelivered. It could not be delivered. 10 years. You know, who can excuse you about this? Armed forces suffered because of this. So these are inexcusable, and this corporatization has to happen. But mind you, this has not happened in one go. In April 17, MOD did a lot of things. 143 items from the OFB was given to the open market to be procured from the market. You know, a uniform, sleeping bag, military trucks, and blah, blah, and blah, blah, which can be produced by anyone else. That was given by this government. Secondly, May 17, 4 factories of the OFB were given the PPP model. You know, AVM was with me when the first PPP model, public-private participation model, we worked for with the LND for the production of the ILSS, indigenous, the integrated life support system for the LCA. LNT was the first to come there, and that was excellent model. And we worked on that. So PPP model was given first time for the OFB in May 17, and last but not the least, in June 20 itself, government had given this mandate to the OFB that we are going to do the corporation. And within 1 year, now this corporation has come. I'm sure with the management now there to answer for everything, things will improve. The OFB will upgrade itself, and a lot of things will happen what we have been expecting it to happen. And if you have to achieve the Atmanirbhar Bharat, these are the companies, these are the people, Bharat Dynamics, HAL, DRDO, these are the agency which has to come. And that is how now it is going to be coming. And that is how I'm extremely happy that this step has been taken by the government to corporatize the OFB.
Absolutely, absolutely. General, coming back to you now, and going back to a point that the AVM was making about ensuring that we get to a level where we truly become Atmanirbhar. One, that is definitely one goal. The second goal, be self-sufficient and also provide to the world. And there is a major scope and a massive scope as far as defense equipment and weapons and that particular aspect is concerned, isn't it?
Frank, I would like to dwell on these two aspects in a slightly different way now. Now, firstly, as far as exports are concerned, now the Prime Minister has laid down a target of $5 billion worth of exports of defense equipment. Now, there was a reason why we were not exporting defense equipment earlier, and that was really a mindset problem. There's nothing wrong otherwise. That mindset problem is a legacy of 1947, that we are a peaceful nation, so we won't export weapons. I had, in one of my interactions with my Bangladeshi colleagues, I was talking to the earlier High Commissioner, and I told him, I said, why don't you chaps buy weapons from us? And he said, instead of buying Chinese weapons, and he specifically told me, we would love to buy Indian weapons if the government of India will sell it to us. So there was a problem of really within our own systems, a mindset problem that we don't manufacture, that we won't sell. Number two, from the Emirates, there was, I think, a few years back, there was one of these defense expos which were held there. And when the Indian equipment was shown there, you see, it lacked the requisite quality. So when you're looking at various things, like even simple things like ammunition or something, if it is not really up to the world-class standard, then people won't buy. But the beauty of the whole system is India can produce better than the world quality. You see, as I made my initial remarks, there is nothing wrong with our scientists and our engineers and all that. We are the best in the world. So basically, I think it is much more of a mindset problem, a bureaucratic problem, and a procedural problem. So once we get rid of those things, we have the talent. In-house talent within India is absolutely phenomenal. So I've got no problem with that. I think we need to restructure those things. So now those policies are changing. If once the Prime Minister says we will export $5 billion worth, I think over another 10 to 15 years, it'll become 25 billion. Then it'll be 100 billion. So once those things open out, you will find both the public sector and the private sector really gelling very well.
Right. So, AVM, coming back to you now and taking forward the point that, the general was making as well. He was speaking about gelling between the public sector and the private sector. To what extent can we see an amalgamation or a coordination between the private sector and the public sector, especially in this field?
So, Frank, you brought forward a very important point, which is very close to my heart. Because having worked in both public sector and private sector, what I think the panelists have been trying to bring out, my co-panelists, that corporatization is one of the essential things which you must go into. But let me say, when we become a corporate, what we are essentially doing, we are only doing the restructuring, we are improving our methods, procedures, empowering the people who are managing the show. And this empowerment actually is against the, I would say, essence of opposing it. Suppose I was in OFB, I would really not oppose it because it is empowering me. I'm getting the empowerment to do my job even better. Coming back to the point, the public-private partnership or a PPP, how government, so there's a government which is the 100% stakeholder in this case, and then there's a public sector. Then we have private sector, which will supply us different items. I can joint venture with them. I can, in this case, I can even merge with them. The acquisition and merger has been facilitated, which is very difficult which was very difficult in our times when I was in DPSU, because I wanted to, acquire certain firms. They were doing niche job, they were very important, but they were having all difficulties which are associated with the startup. So they wanted to exit out, but I was not in a position to buy them. OFB will have that advantage, and having such a large presence, they can exploit this advantage. So there is a model which we say it is not only public-private partnership, it is public-private partnership. Because what happens, a three-tier structure. You are sitting as an OEM or the final manufacturer. You have tier 1 people. The tier 1 people draw their items from tier 2, and tier 2 draw their items from tier 3. This is my learning from being in private sector. If my tier 3 chap who's only producing for me washers or small items which are wires, etc., and they are not able to give me, I cannot make my final product. So what do? I go and facilitate him. I say, okay, what do you need? You need some money without interest. You need something. You need some equipment. I'll later on work it out how my orders will compensate for that. But I really hold his hand, or he has some technology issue. So holding hand, that means we need to set up the ecosystem which we have been talking about now for a long time, as we have been talking about the corporatization of OFB for a very long time. It started in 2000. Essentially, there have been 4 committees. So we know that we need to set up the ecosystem too. And in ecosystem, on top you're sitting as a public sector, you tie up with the private sector, you have another private sector with who you have to keep alive if you want to really deliver in time. If you go into the analysis of all WIP which we are talking about on this panel, all the work in progress are starving for some or other small items. The items are not produced in time because some item has to come. Their supply chain management is funny. If you really ask me, because of certain reasons, you are in Madhya Pradesh, something is in Pune, something is in UP, something is in Calcutta, all spread all over. And it has to move from place one to another. And if you see the CAG report, which Dr. Jha was quoting, the CAG report says the transportation cost is very heavy. The overheads are heavy because of transportation cost. Your small items are moving to and fro from all the places. They need to be aggregated in one way or another, so that aggregation will take place. What I'm saying, the moment you structure the whole thing, you create a process, the process then focuses on fiduciary responsibility. The major change which will come when you make a corporate and you're working as a government department. In government department, my salary comes whether I work or I don't work. There's a culture of different kind. But in when you become a corporate, the fiduciary responsibility rests with the board. Board has to all the time answer, why are you not profitable? Where are you using your money? And also the IDS officers who now fill in the Ordnance Factory Board will slowly be eased off over a period of time, and the companies will have their own financial cadre. A man who's rising from below, who's learned, these IDS officers get posted out, they do not know the nuances of finance, and finance is a very important part, how things come. Then you have your own materials management procedures. With these two empowerment, I think the best thing which will come, that they'll be able to buy items at a low price, and they'll also be able to understand how to sweat their asset. When I was even in public sector, all the time I had this burden on my head that what's happening to my plant and machinery if I don't have the order? Because I'm paying certain money for keeping them alive. What I'm getting out of is the order, matching order must come. So the idea being, the moment corporate comes in being and the government department goes away, the same skillful people are there, but now they can align their skills, they can align their capabilities, and they can align their plant and machinery, land, whatever they have, towards achieving the fiduciary responsibility, that is running the whole organization in a profitable or the most efficient manner. At the moment that comes, the offshoot would be your production will happen on time, because if it's not time, you'll be paying LD and all that, and you'll be actually losing money. It'll never be profitable. Your employees will have to work better. That means MHR, what we call man-hour rate. The man-hour rate will come down, which should happen, which is very high otherwise. And then you'll be predicting a cost. When you're predicting a cost, you'll be thinking of automation, because you're competing. Today, there's no automation, because if automation comes in, the people fear that the people will get rid of. So automation is not there. If automation is not there, the R&D is not there. R&D budgets. Now you can retain, if you make profit, you can retain within the company. and that profit can then be, sent towards the R&D budgets. And as
Right.
such, you'll have responsibility like a corporate entity. You'll have the responsibility of CSR. You'll have the responsibility of R&D. You have so many other responsibilities will come alongside. And you don't have to run up to the government of India, which has only one laid out procedure to follow for procurement. You can have your own procedure. I'll tell you, there have
Sure.
been instances. Let me showcase one example which will highlight this issue. There was a product, a naval product, which we are not able to make because somebody has bid for this cost, which was 3 times less than the cost of production. But he was L1. So now you cannot refute the L1 from not taking the order. So order was given to him. There is a latency after the order. After 1 year, he raised his hands. He said, I can't just supply it. So he never supplied it. Now we had to go to the board. I could go to the board. In otherwise case, I'll have to rebid. I could go to the board, explain the situation, send a team, follow a procedure, and establish that yes, we need this item if you want to maintain the timeliness. It was approved. The higher rate was approved, which is
Sure.
very difficult otherwise. So these nuances come in between, which you come to know only when you're handling them yourself. You put your foot over there and your hands are there, then you realize, okay, oh, these small things make such a difference. So what I'm saying, at the macro level, the fiduciary responsibility will come. They will know that they are responsible for a cost, and they're responsible for sweating all their plant and machinery and land. Whatever is not doing anything needs to be eased out. It can be sold off to other entity. I can do
Right.
acquire these startups. I can do acquisitions. I can do mergers. I can have joint ventures. Phenomenal. Now I know how to do. I can really act as a manager on board, and that's what will happen. So that's
Point
what I
taken.
think will bring in the change.
Absolutely, Dr. Jha. Since we are talking about bringing both the public sector as well as the private sector on board and working together, will that change both for the private sector and the public sector? Will it be an easy change to make, or do you see that being difficult because we are looking at 80,000 employees of the OFB as well? Is it going to be easy for them to make that switch because they've been working in this mold for several years and some of them even for a few decades?
Very pertinent question, Frank, you have asked me. As long as the private firm is sure that he is going to benefit within a given time, the services has got slight problem. The high-end products, whenever there is a PPP model, the private player has to be confident that yes, within a given time, I will be able to come to the production. He doesn't want to continue with the nagging small R&D problems continuing for years together. He is not interested in that. So as long as he is convinced that he can complete the R&D part of it and then start with the production, most of the bigger players in the R&D would like to come on the PPP model. And that is how I was giving you the example that in the ILSS for the LCA, L&T did come on the platform. Of course, we lagged behind. It was our fault, our DRDO's fault, and some part on the quality assurance, Semilac and people like that the things continued for a little longer time. But if that objective is sure, they all will come. And second, one small thing I forgot to answer you when you asked me for the first time, the manpower. We have problems. The DRDO is a semi-government, semi-civilian setup in which the workers, they have high end. They have got the higher hand with this corporation. Now the management will be answerable. The board of directors will be answerable. And as long as these two, they are in line as answering as the people who have to give the be accounting for, I'm sure the particular labs, particular factories, they will automatically now start going forward. And last but not least is the type of product that you want. See, you have to come out of the NSAS and all those things. There is no more of that. So that new weapon that you want, the service must put that demand onto the OFB. There could be DRDO element into it for the initial R&D, and subsequently, even though OFB has got the R&D wing, so they should come up with that, and that should come in a lively manner. For the MiG aircraft, MiG-21, still some of the weaponry for the MiG-21 is being bought from the Russia. How can you excuse all this? So now this Rafale has come. We have got various types of upgraded missiles versions. Why shouldn't we produce those? Some part is with the Bharat Dynamics, some part will be the OFB, and altogether this has to be a composite defense production platform wherein all needs of services, whether it is Indian Air Force, Navy, or Indian Army, everything should come out. Frank.
Sure. Absolutely. All right. Time to get quick closing comments now from all my panelists with the best way forward, starting first with you, General.
Right. I'll be very frank. I'll be very quick on this, Frank. One, I think it is important to create our defense industrial base. We have got these industrial corridors coming up in both UP and in Tamil Nadu. But for the smaller sectors to come up, the SMEs and the MSMEs, which will actually feed onto the bigger firms where the ABM is working or has worked with, I think that is very important. Number two, it will create, over a period of time, this will create millions of jobs for Indians. And thirdly, I think it'll get your GDP up by 1 to 2 percentage points. That is the potential of the defense industry. Let us not lose this momentum now. I think all political parties must get on board and give it their requisite support. In the long run, it'll even benefit the workers in the public sector. I've got no doubts about it. So this is something which is good, which has happened. We need to take it forward with all the energy at our disposal. Frank.
Absolutely. AVM?
So, Frank, I would just say this corporatization is with a very modern outlook. The government has even accepted the ESOP for the employees. They have also accepted the bonuses which are based on the output you give. So with all that thrown in, it's not only a great step, the step has been taken or executed in the most, I would say, acceptable manner. And I have I have great faith. I have no disbelief that despite all the beating what OFB has got in past few years and decades now, we say, because their scale is in centuries, it has great set of people. HR is very good, and if they come on board, they can really meet the targets. And as General has rightly pointed out, that the ecosystem which we are begging to get established will really get a quantum jump with this single step. And the moment this happens, you'll see that your ecosystem comes in play, and the moment the system comes in play, then we'll be in one of those nations who export and of course meet their own demands. Sure. And with it coming in, your GDP going by some percentage point is one of those collateral benefits you always get with such kind of strategic initiatives. So that would be my.
Absolutely. And Dr. Jha, close the show for us with your quick concluding remarks.
Well, General Katoch and AVM has already said everything. I will just add one more point. See, the OFB has to be accountable. There is no way out, and it has to be accountable with both quality and quantity of the product to be given to the services to the satisfaction of the end user. That is the bottom line that must be met. Secondly, we must meet the production objective, and in this case, services must do some hold handling, must give enough of the type of the product that is required to be made by them, answerable to them, and also do the hand holding. If other objective body like DRDO can assist in those productions, by all means do that. And last but not the least, they have to help us, the nation, towards its self-sufficiency. We have to be Atmanirbhar, and there is no two-way about it. There is no alternative about it. And on that, we must meet the PM's objective of the Atmanirbhar Bharat. Frank.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Well, what's coming out of this discussion is that corporatization of the OFB should have happened a long time ago, but now that it has happened, it is a positive development. Overheads will be reduced going forward, making the system more cost effective. Corporatization will bring in more accountability and ensure people are more responsible and also a lot more competitiveness. Our defense industrial base needs to be strengthened as there is massive potential there. The sector can create millions of jobs and help the economy as well. So it is important for both the public and the private sector to work together and ensure that we reach the full potential. We need to change our outlook towards the sector as well and do all that we possibly can to reach new heights. Well, before I go, let me inform you that Bharata First's Knowledge Center has been launched, an initiative that will help each one of you in your competitive exams journey, and it will also prepare you in a better way for life and transform the way that you learn and gain knowledge. You can go to our website kc.bharatafirst.com for all the details. Register now and avail the limited period early bird discounts. It's a knowledge center and a learning experience like none other. Well, thank you once again for your continued support. For those of you who haven't already subscribed, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then all notifications. Do follow our social media handles for all the latest updates, and you can also subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. The Bharata First team runs a daily Big Picture quiz. Please do participate by going through the description in Big Picture videos. Here are the UPI IDs for those of you who would like to come forward and contribute. A small contribution that you make will be a giant leap for us to keep bringing you this content. So do continue to show your love and support. I need it now more so than ever. In case you have trouble with the UPI IDs, you can click on the payment link in the description below and follow the instructions. All this information along with some must-see recommendations are in the description of this video. Please go through it. That's it from me. See you again next time.